All right. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for being here. We have Delores Oates, our delegate, Delores Oates, 31st District, and we have Emily Wendell. She's the City Council for Ward 2, legislative aide for Dolores, and mother of two. Well, I should have put that first because that's the most important thing, and the president of the Young Republicans. So we are the Conservatives of Lake Frederick, and I'm trying to get recording for so that we can share our local and state representatives. So first thing I'm gonna have Dolores introduce yourself. If you could tell everybody what areas District 31 encompasses, and then I'll have Emily introduce herself too.
Sure thing. So I'm Delores Oates. I live in Warren County where I grew up. And the 31st District encompasses most of Warren County. The far southern precinct that doesn't, Bentonville and Browntown, is not included, but the majority of Warren. And then all of Clark County is included in the 31st. And the southern half of Frederick, which includes, and the easiest way for me to describe it is that if you live in the Opequon District, you're in the 31st. And if you live in the Middletown area of Back Creek, then you're also in the 31st District. And then I also cover all of Armel and up 522, the Tasker Road area, of course, all of Lake Frederick. The Shawnee District is all of it I also cover. Okay. So that's my area of responsibility in the Virginia House of Delegates.
Okay. And what about you a little personally? People that don't know you, some people don't have the pleasure of having met you before.
So I am, like I said, I'm a native of Warren County. I grew up here. I went to school for half of my elementary in Frederick County because we were right on the border. I lived right on the border of Frederick, Clark, and Warren, where it all joined. I believe that was ordained by God to put me in this position years ago because I was uniquely positioned to grow up in an area that I would eventually represent. In fact, where Lake Frederick is, the country treasure store was known as the Wishing Well when I was a child. My grandfather ran a store where the truck caps are currently situated, and my dad owned the car lot beside Max Roller Rink. So my roots are really deep in this community. I have a heart to serve. I love this community deeply and want to see our values preserved here because we can see what's happening and that we're being transformed by lots of migration from Northern Virginia and from New Jersey and New York, and lots of areas where folks are coming with different values. And so I am looking to try to balance the new folks that are moving in here with what we have loved about this community and its rural character my whole life.
Well, thank you. Emily, you want to tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Sure thing. I have the distinct honor and privilege of working with Dolores. I do not go to Richmond. We've had some fantastic women that fill in during the legislative session, so I work entirely in the district. My job is very unpredictable. It just depends on what we need that day, answering phone calls from constituents that might be calling us in Richmond, emails. Constituent issues is a major part. If somebody is having difficulty with VDOT or unemployment, whatever state services they're struggling with, I act as a liaison to help them. Just kind of whatever hat the day presents. And sometimes you wake up and you don't know exactly what we need to get done. So I try my best to patch it all together. But it has been a real honor to work with Dolores because, as you mentioned earlier, I'm on city council. And so I have a great mentor to kind of help me through some of the difficult decisions that I might see at the local level.
All right, since you're our liaison, how can people get in contact? Do they use the email for Dolores?
Yeah, that email for Dolores is just like a big inbox, and then I'll funnel through directly to Dolores any emails she needs. But we both can see them. So if somebody has a constituent email, the best thing to do would be to reach out to our delegate email, which I'm happy to share.
Yeah, if you do that, then
Yep.
I
I'll
can.
drop it in the chat so we have
Okay,
it. And
thank you.
and if phone is easier, we can work with people with whatever they need. We're very flexible.
All right, thank you. Appreciate that. All right, Dolores, I know that you know Lake Frederick and the state of growth in our community itself. And some of the majority of our concerns revolve around public safety, i.e., emergency personnel getting here to us and our community roads. Um, so I'm going to go. I know I had sent some of the issues to Emily that we wanted to cover. I do have one question that I want to pose before I forget. It came from Steve Prater, one of our community members, who at the current time is working with VDOT and the county trying to get an emergency road built in off 277. And his question is there a contact or a conduit to VDOT that will help them expedite? Right now, they're working on, I don't know if who all's been down to 77, but they're doing a construction entrance on the back end, on the peninsula side of Lake Frederick for emergency vehicles, and it'll be also construction. Right now, that speed limit's 55 miles an hour on 277, so it's a safety issue for that end, people coming in and out, but it's a big safety issue for us trying to make sure that emergency personnel can get into the community, and that will be their quickest access. Besides that, it also help reduce property or real estate tax insurance and be able to get that. So is there a conduit to VDOT for that group working with them to help expedite that?
Absolutely. I actually spoke with someone representing Lake Frederick not long ago. Marvin Davis, is
Yeah.
that name? Okay, so
He's one of them that are working, yes.
Marvin and I had a conversation approximately a month ago about this issue. And I gave him, I mean, he had already scheduled a meeting with VDOT. I believe at that time they were meeting, and he wanted to, he wanted insight into how to handle that and what the procedure might be for this request. So I had spoken to him. I don't know, but I am happy to be a conduit to VDOT. VDOT is an animal that is very challenging to manage.
Yeah, apparently they're still having issues because Steve's working with Marv closely. And he just reached out 2 days ago to me with this question to pose for me to come. So apparently they're still having issues. What
happy to be whatever help I can. I told Miles or that I would be happy, Marvin, that I would be happy to connect or to talk to VDOT personally. I have a great working relationship with this district representative, and so I'm happy to reach out and do what I need to do. At that time, they didn't really need me to intervene at all. They were going to just go through the typical process. It's a private, you guys have private roads, so they're not maintained by the county or the state. So it was a matter of just making sure that the entrance was in compliance and that you got the entrance at that time. Right.
And I know that there's issues with the county. They're looking to make some of our roads public, and they're saying for emergency personnel. So there's that issue. I think the Board of Supervisors was discussing that last night. Did they have a meeting last night?
No.
No? Okay. Whenever the next upcoming Board of Supervisors meeting, I believe they were going to be discussing that. I will have them get back in touch with you then, Dolores.
Please do. Yeah, I'm happy to work because that is a critical emergency exits and entrances are critical to the safety of the residents. And so that needs to be expedited. And when I had spoken, so Bob Wells is your supervisor on the Board of Supervisors, and he reached me and introduced me to the folks that are managing this within your team.
Okay, wonderful.
Yep.
Okay. So that aside, what are your key priorities when you get back to Richmond? What do you see especially for our area, but in the state in general?
Well, the state in general is on a collision course with energy. And the requirements are not totally driven by data centers, but are certainly exacerbated by the data centers. But I mean, if you think about the homes we live in currently, we all have smartphones, smart appliances, smart cars, smart everything. And this is driving the need for more and more data into the average home. And so currently, Virginia is the top importer of energy in the country, outpacing California.
Wow. Wow.
Right. And so, what that says to me is that we need to be prepared, not wait until something happens, but be prepared and try to mitigate the impacts of this energy need that we have, this power hungry state that we are currently in. AI is one of the biggest drivers, obviously. It requires 6 times or more the power traditional data requirements. So one of my priorities is number one is to learn and educate myself on what the energy issues are, and then try to be out in front and mitigate some of those. I've seen estimates that electric bills will increase by as much as 40% over the next several years, and that is unacceptable to me. So we've got to figure out how to mitigate these issues.
Okay. So I'm assuming over the next year or so, we're going to be as citizens directed on what we can do. I saw your comment of, I think it was on Facebook. We need to all maybe put down our phones for our computers. We're all
That
addicted.
was kind of a tongue-in-cheek comment,
yes,
right? But I
I get
just
that.
I wanted our constituents to understand that this is a problem that we're bringing on ourselves as much as anything. And so we have to be aware that our new requirement for all things, online is helping to bring this issue into the forefront. But at the same time, as leaders in Richmond, I think we have to look at what we can do to minimize the impacts. I will tell you the Virginia Clean Energy Act is really costing Virginians a lot of money. And I'm trying to put my arms around what is that per household. Right now, it's not really obvious how much it's costing, but the requirement that we go solar, that we go wind, that we do all these things are diverting resources and investments into energy that frankly isn't producing enough megawatts to really power what we need. It's not reliable in that sense. And so are we creating problems for Virginians that are unnecessary by requiring standards that we cannot meet? And that Clean Energy Act, it is just, I mean, it requires that by 2045 that everything is renewable. And that is not that it is just untenable. There's no way we're going to be able to comply. And so, yes.
All right. Just for those that joined late, know that this is being recorded. So if you could mute, just so we don't hear your background noise, that'd be great. Do you see, Dolores, that if Spamberger gets elected, let's hope she doesn't, that these clean energy bills and green energy are going to just exacerbate in our state?
Absolutely. So I saw in my experience in the legislature this year what I call the dream list of what they want to enact should they get total control of our state. And we have to prevent that, because if they get in total control of the state, they will turn our state into California. That is their dream. They want you to be forced to drive cars that they require you to drive. Maybe not Teslas now, but something else. But they want electric vehicles. They want you to live without without what your choices are, and live with their choices. And so I saw that throughout my experience reading bills in the legislature this year. It's insane.
Can you share? I know about, I was talking to Emily because I couldn't find the new titles for the HJ 1, 2, and 9. And I know as a HJ 1 is for the reproductive rights. And I don't know, I know one of these that is associated with this a little bit, and maybe you can have some insight. I know what happened in the Senate, that I believe that the Democrats staged this to put Sears in the bad light for the political season coming up. There was a vote on birth control access, I think, and they said, okay, so many people don't come in, don't vote, put Sears in the seat of having to break a tie. And I believe there was language in there for the day after pill. So she voted no.
There
So
was, yeah. Well, so here's the thing that bill did. That bill, for the very first time in Virginia history, would require insurance companies to cover an over-the-counter birth control pill. Over the counter. We do not have over-the-counter drugs currently being required by insurance companies. That is an open door. And so all of us looked at this and said, whoa, where does this end, and how much control will insurance companies have to force how much can people use insurance for over the counter? So that was one of the issues, but also the morning after pill, the abortifacients, right, would be required in this bill. And it would also require companies to provide insurance that covered these things, even if it conflicted with their religious beliefs. And so this bill, frankly, was decided in the Supreme Court in the Hobby Lobby case. But nonetheless, Virginia was going to try to, and, the Virginia Democrats were going to try to force it through. And that's why what they were hoping is that the average voter is going to be uneducated on what this bill really did, right? Because most people just read the title and have no idea what the impact of the bill is. And so they put her in a position to vote on it so that they could use it against her in the general. And so that's exactly, there are political games going on. I was the victim. My community, Front Royal, Warren County was the victim of a political game. And so there are lots of those types of things going on in Richmond.
Do you see a crack in the door on either house, especially the House of Delegates, because that's where you've been, where any conservative values are going to get through? Or
only if we win, if we can win, or at least keep the House, win the House back, keep the executive mansion, there's a possibility that we balance the craziness that's going on. These are extreme policies that Democrats want. And I don't think that people understand how extreme some of these things are. Spanberger has openly come out and said she will abolish right to work. That means collective bargaining will be the prevailing arrangement in our state. And I would have you go look at Illinois and see how that's worked out over there. Anyway, those are the kinds of things that they want. They want to destroy Virginia. And right to work the abolishment of right to work will destroy Virginia as the #1 state to do business with in the country, which is where we are currently. We are there for a reason, because people are free to choose the jobs they want, and companies are free to hire and fire as they want. And that free market approach is what has created the success. We've had a $3 billion surplus over the last 2 years. And much of that is because the business community is so vibrant in this state. And, it's important that we do not allow them to get total control of Virginia. They want minimum wage raised. They want to force small businesses to provide family leave. And I don't know of a less than 10-person business that can provide somebody paid leave for 10 or 12 weeks and survive.
Right.
And we as employees make decisions about who we work for, because we want to work there, because we like the mission, and so a lot of those freedoms will be taken away if these folks get into power.
Now, Dolores, before you hopped on, Rhonda and I were talking about, this question, right? Is there a window of opportunity for conservative values? And it reminds me, we've had some different conversations over the past few months about how there's no perfect candidate, right?
Right.
Love it or not, the Republican ticket is set. And if we don't get behind that ticket wholeheartedly, we have to stop eating our own, and we've got to forge forward, or else all of those things that you just talked about are going to become our reality.
Absolutely. And we do. And so as Republicans, we need to support our Republican candidates. And you're right, there are no perfect. I mean, I don't agree with my husband on all the issues. So, I certainly don't expect to agree with the governor or the lieutenant governor or even some of my colleagues in the House on all the issues. And that is what makes us such an incredible republic, is that we do have lots of different life experiences, and we bring them into the conversation, and we debate them, and we talk about them, and then we decide how to move forward. But maintaining conservative values is going to be extremely difficult if they have full control of Virginia. And that is their dream. And you guys saw what happened in 2020 when they had full control. I mean, we were all forced to stay home, and we couldn't go to church and worship, and but the governor was running around doing selfies on Virginia Beach, and so it's what's good for me, but not for thee mentality is what we're going to see.
Is there a chance for Virginia, the Republicans, to take the House this year?
Absolutely.
All right,
Absolutely. We have about, I think 10 or 12, Emily, is it 12? I think it's 12 races that are highly competitive. And in fact, people like me who are in highly, conservative areas are kind of adopting one of those we call them purple districts, or districts where they're highly competitive. And we're trying to help by sending, some resources, door knockers, and that sort of stuff to help these other districts, with the activities necessary to get elected.
Because that would be great. It'd be a stopgap. I know the Senate's close. It'd be great if we could get the Senate over the top too. A lot's going on in the country with Doge and the tariff negotiations that are going on. Do you see that impacting this year's elections for Virginia to the next?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's impacting. So, fortunately, unfortunately, depending on how you view it, we are in the closest proximity and have the biggest impact from the federal situation. So, the doging is absolutely necessary. In fact, I was going to tell you, I think we need to doge quite a few agencies in the Virginia government. So I think it's important, especially VDOT. But anyway, that's a bureaucratic like nightmare. And so we need to figure out how to streamline those things. But the impact to Virginia voters is going to be huge. Now, the interesting thing is that I met with Congressman Klein yesterday to talk about some of these things, and what I learned from him is what is actually going on and what the legacy media is reporting that's happening are two different things. And so there isn't chaos. There is a very well planned effort to deconstruct some of these agencies, to go through and create efficiencies and economies of scale and some of those things that will benefit taxpayers. And yet the legacy media is trying to portray it as a total nightmare. And interestingly, people believe it. And I just want to share with you guys, there may be federal workers in our community that are being laid off or making the choice to take an early out, but we have not gotten one phone call from people or one email from anybody who has been laid off or needs help.
Not a single
Not a
phone
single
call
one.
or email. I've gotten over the past few weeks hundreds of phone calls and emails of people that are angry, but not because they've been laid off.
Wow. Wow.
So I'm not sure what the real impacts are based on what I heard from Congressman Klein yesterday.
Okay. So, what's going on in Richmond that you can share with us that could affect our community given the age bracket that we're in? We have the 55 and plus community. The other side of the lake has a mixed group, but a lot of 55 and over plus. So a lot of the issues on Medicare, Medicaid, well, probably not Medicaid in our area, but anything that's going to impact our age bracket. Is any legislation going on down there?
Absolutely. So I have a couple of things here. I mean, the cost of healthcare is continuing to increase, and it's going to be an issue. And everything really comes back to competition. And if you notice, what's going on is that there's no competition in healthcare. There's this centralization of systems, right? And they're buying up all of all the private providers, even. I mean, primary care physicians' offices used to be independent, but because of the cost, the lack of resources, and frankly, the legislation of Obamacare, it has created the exact environment that we said it would, which would minimize, it would increase costs, increase the cost of insurance, and minimize the ability for you to get an appointment. And so and Emily knows this, I believe in competition. I do not believe that there should be a legislative initiative that would minimize the ability for other providers to come into the community and compete. Yet that is part of the state. The state has a law that basically said that it was initiated it's called the COPN, Certificate of Public Need. And what it did initially was to entice hospital systems to come into rural areas. So they gave them, complete autonomy to come in and build a hospital. But they didn't intend, I think, for them to include all healthcare. And that's what has happened since COVID. I've watched that. So one of the things that is interesting to me, and I've currently been talking to folks about it, is that you can get an imaging in Winchester and your insurance will pay $3,000. That same imaging is available in Maryland for $1,200. So what is the difference? The difference is that there's a monopoly in our community and there's competition in other communities. So I've actually been talking to my own primary care physician about this. She cracks me up. I go to see her about my health and I spend an hour talking to her about policy. And so she has actually put this on my radar, and she said, there should be competition in these services because it's costing our patients far more than it should be.
I
And
know.
I'll chime in on that too. This affects every age bracket because Dolores brought forth a bill that would have made competition more possible for maternal health facilities. And right now, there's not a great option nearby. You've got to go to Valley Health if you're in Winchester, and your next option is an hour away. And so, if you're not pleased with the services there, then you've got an hour car ride to have a baby. So I really appreciate that's a big issue for my age bracket, and Dolores brought that forward. It unfortunately it meets the fate that a lot of our bills meet, but I think it's a good conversation that needs to be had.
Yeah, Emily, just on that note, aside, my daughter's 35 and the same issue happened with health, with maternal care back then. I went to Leesburg because it's been bad for decades here. Um, yeah,
And that's unfortunate because you should have choices. And where there are choices, there are always going to be better outcomes. And that's what, that is something that we feel like the COPN, if you go look in states where there isn't certificate of public need, the healthcare outcomes are far better and less expensive.
right. And it's hard. I know Al and I, when we moved back here, try to get a doctor is almost impossible. So our
It is.
practitioners are nurse practitioners. Health providers are very limited in this area, so it's frustrating. Um, does anybody have specific questions? I don't want to monopolize. They want to ask Dolores.
Yeah, I've
Yes.
had my hand raised and you haven't
Oh, I'm
recognized it.
sorry. I didn't see it.
I wanted to go along with what Dolores was just talking about right there. So we're speaking about our age bracket and everything else that covers everybody. But some of the questions question I have along that line, if I could, um, is there any consideration down in Richmond to one, look at some of the taxes that are imposed on people above a certain age group, like 65 and above. For instance, when we lived in Texas there for a while, escaped here and got back now, right? In Texas, if you own your primary residence for at least a year, you can qualify for homesteading. So that at that point, once you're accepted at homesteading, um, your tax on your property is capped. That's where they leave it at, and they put it right here. So I was wondering if they could do something like that here in Virginia, propose a resolution, a bill for that to say at this age group, because now you've entered into the, fixed income, right? Stop taxing me on the property that I own. I really shouldn't be, none of us should be in a landlord relationship with the government, right? Because if I manage to pay off my house, but I don't pay those taxes, the government gets to take my house. But if you cap it, you at least give somebody some hope that, you can maintain your residence. The other part of that would be then at 65, capping it at 65, you cap that off there and that's it. They can keep going up. And the part that they could certainly still go up would be for your EMS and ambulance and that kind of those services there. But on your property, that's it. A proposal like that would really be helpful for a majority of people, not just in our community here, but across the board. And the other part of that would be eliminating taxes. And I know it's been up there before on our vehicles. It's private property. You bought it, you paid for it. And I know I've heard the thing, well, that's where we get our taxes for our roads and everything. And my answer to that was, well, I think you tax the gas for that purpose. So, figure out how you're going to make this happen. So it's one of those things. And thirdly, I know you're going to answer that, but thirdly, can you tell us, in Texas, we're able to do this, be able to reach out to our representatives and everything and propose a legislation or something that we would want to be put out there. We do this on a regular basis to put it on a blank for the party. Is there a way that we could communicate with you to say, I'd really like it if perhaps you might be able to draft a bill, if you agree with it, to present to the legislature to get this through for us? Because I'd love to write one here, say 65 and over, cap it.
Absolutely. We're happy to work with you. So I do know that there are current local laws that when I was on the Board of Supervisors, I do know that it was up to the Board of Supervisors to vote on specific discounts for senior citizens and veterans. And so there are provisions that exist in law already, but I don't know the specifics of those off the top of my head, Al. I wish I had the brain that I had when I was in my 30s and retain all this stuff, but now I have to take notes. But yeah, I'm happy to look into that.
Scott, I see you have your hand up. You want to ask?
Yes, thanks very much. And Rhonda, thank you for arranging this. And also, you mentioned the Board of Supervisors meeting. That's tonight.
Oh, tonight.
It's tonight at 7 o'clock. And if you want to see it, it is on the government access channel
Okay.
that we have on Comcast in Xfinity. I want to thank you both, Delegate and Counselor, for your public service. And Delegate, I appreciate your taking time to come last year to the enjoyable picnic that Rhonda had, and also the meeting a few months ago in their home. And as one who has been in Richmond every day of the session, you all should know that the delegate is very accessible, and I've enjoyed the opportunity that is available to all of you to have a wonderful rapport with her. I appreciate also your mention of this year's elections, and I have never seen a um, political leadership in the House and the Senate more convinced they're going to win than the Democrats are about this year's elections. And that just makes me want to work harder in support of our candidates. And I mention that to say that the lieutenant governor, since Rhonda, you mentioned about the Senate, lieutenant governor, to make sure you all know, presides over the Senate, is the president of the Senate, and casts tie-breaking votes. That is how some bad things have been stopped by Lieutenant Governor Sears. And that ties into something I wanted to ask you, Delegate, if you'd elaborate on. And that is the unfortunate move that I was watching live in the Senate when Senator Rouse, one of the candidates for the Democrat nomination, reacted, I think, very unfairly and politically motivated to kill that bill that would have been so important to Warren County. Can you elaborate on that? And I commend you on your leadership and that of Senator Robinshane, who reacted and called attention. And I think that we should not forget that when we vote this fall um, to support John Reed, now that he's the nominee, so that that member who stopped your good bill, Delegate, doesn't get to preside over the Senate and cast, as I said about Winsome 4 years ago, every vote she'll cast will be good.
Yep.
And every vote John Reed would cast would be good. And the opposite side of that is that we have no chance. And I've never seen so many partisan votes in my 41 years in Richmond. That is not how any of the Democrats would vote. Delegate.
Absolutely. So this year, and this is horrific. I just want you to know what Scott is referencing. Warren County, as many of you may know, was the victim of an embezzlement, a $23 million embezzlement from the Economic Development Authority. And the Front Royal Warren County Economic Development Authority, because of that, is basically defunct. I mean, it cannot operate, it cannot borrow money, because at this point there's so much litigation and no one will touch it. So in 2020, then Delegate Chris Collins carried a bill that would give the town of Front Royal its own economic development authority or industrial development authority. And that was a unique arrangement in the state of Virginia to have two in one location, Scott. Wasn't that the first time, I think, is what I've been told, that had been done? And it was to mitigate the issue that we were experiencing because we are uniquely positioned in the state for economic development because of where we're located. We have one of the best locations in the whole state. So anyway, so the bill would have allowed the town of Front Royal to do industrial development, which would have given it a vehicle to get bonds and to get grants and other things, and to do infrastructure projects and include Warren County. So this year, that bill sunsetted. It would have sunsetted on July 1, 2025. So I carried a bill. This is the whole thing that the bill said. Instead of 2025, it said 2030. It gave Front Royal Warren County 5 more years of this arrangement to be able to do economic development. And unfortunately, when it passed unanimously out of the House, and when it got to the Senate, they passed it by for 2 days. And I knew when I saw them passing the bill by, which means they didn't want to take it up on the House floor, that they were going to use it in some strategic move. And so on the third hearing of the bill, on the third day when they heard the bill, there was another bill that was a Virginia Beach bill, and that bill would have given Virginia Beach the ability to create new voting districts. Now, in the House and in the Senate, you have to have a 2/3 majority to pass any bill that affects a charter of a community. And so anyway, that bill failed in Virginia Beach. They did not get enough support in the Senate for that bill. So Senator Rouse, who is from Virginia Beach, got up on the floor and decided to kill the ability for Front Royal and Warren County to do economic development as a retribution for them not getting their bill in Virginia Beach passed. He admitted as much. He stood up on the floor and said, "Hey, Senator Obenshain, you give me what we want, and I'll give you what you want." And so as a result, by the way, the governor then added the bill back in to his budget amendments and tried to get them to pass it yet again. It reconvened, and they killed it again in retribution. So my community, and there have been lots of articles written about this. I even did an interview yesterday with Virginia Business Magazine. Our community has been negatively impacted because of the retribution of Democrats. And I'll just put it to you this way. They took a community that had a bloody nose and gave it a black eye out of spite, because now I have to figure out how to assist our community to do economic development until next session, because this bill dies on July 1, 2025. This arrangement dies. So I have to figure out other ways to help them, and they have to figure out other ways to do economic development in the community.
Let me ask a question. I had read an article, and I don't know if it's still there, that Warren County was looking that a power plant got approved to go be on the Shenandoah River. Is that still there?
So there's a power plant here. It's gas. It's a gas-fired power plant, and you can see it. It's right, and it is near the river.
Okay.
But it exists currently, and that's been in existence for a number of years.
Okay. Yeah, this one was from like 22, something like that. I'll have to go back and find the article I mean, it was the plans for it to go in. So I'll have to go back and find, it was a local paper. Now I can't remember which paper it was in, but I'll go back and find that.
Yeah, I just toured the power plant that exists here currently. It is a Dominion power plant, and it's gas and provides a lot of power to the grid.
Okay. Al?
Yeah, Dolores, I had a question for you. Speaking of budget and that kind of stuff, HB 1600, you have an item down there for you. The budget amendment that you put on here was for 1.8 million, I think it is, to reduce traffic congestion around the Shenandoah High School. Can you talk to that?
Sure. So Frederick County put up a significant amount. They put up half the money to do so Shenandoah High School has only one entrance and one exit, which is a single point of failure. And what they wanted to do was take a connector road behind the high school. And so I carried the budget amendment. I asked for the additional appropriation to fix that, so that the children at the school were safer, the people were safer, and would have the ability to get out another way should there be some catastrophic event. And so anyway, that bill failed, Al. I did not get the money. And so Frederick County now will have to figure out another way to get the money to create that connector road. And what it was going to do, it was going to take traffic off of 277 and give it the ability to go around. So it served a multitude of purposes.
Yeah, I know we've talked about this before. It seems like everything you propose there with the makeup of the House of the legislature down there is for naught. I know that you're batting 0 for 12 and everything you tried to as a chief patron trying to put in there. And is that a case that we're seeing there from a lot of stuff? Like you mentioned before, killing the sunset on the bill that you just talked about. Are you seeing a lot of that down there? Is just a lot of spite that anything that we're trying to do that actually helps the community is just being killed because it's one side against the other?
It is. And so, Al, I'll tell you this year, for the first time in the history of, and we have a long history in the House of Delegates, for the first time, 140 Republican bills, over 100, I mean, almost all bills were always heard, right? Because they got a hearing, they went to committee, people got to testify. For the first time, 140 bills, over 140, were not even docketed. They never even took the bills to committee for a hearing. They just never did anything. They called it, what we call that, as a pocket veto. So they just stick it in their pocket and no one ever gets to hear the proposal, the issue, or anything else. And so that was part of their strategy going into this election, was to make sure that Republicans, particularly those Republicans that were in highly competitive districts, never got a bill across the finish line. I got one bill passed this year, and that bill happened to be an HOA bill. It was to give HOAs the ability to get out of management contracts with management companies that they no longer want to do business with, and not be bogged down in bureaucratic paperwork and stuff. So I carried a bill, and that did get across the finish line.
Because everybody lives in an HOA.
Yeah, but exactly. And it was, I mean, it was a nonpartisan, common sense daggone bill, give people, most of the people who serve on these HOAs are not, they're not getting paid to do it. Right. And so, and they're engaging these management companies to be the subject matter experts. And so anyway, that was a bill that I did get across the finish line.
And most of your bills were nonpartisan, common sense bills, like
right.
Sending parents a notice that their children's data was being collected on Chromebooks. That is not a partisan issue.
Right.
Yeah.
What was the bill number for your HOA bill?
2750, I think, off the top of my head. It's HB 2750. I believe that's right, isn't it, Emily? I'm going to tell you, we see thousands of bills, and so memorizing their numbers is just not a possibility. But I believe it was 2750 or 2850.
All right. There was someone had a question on here.
I do. I have a question, if that's okay. There are a couple statements. First off, Delores, thank you so much.
You're
welcome.
And
Emily have been fantastic, and I got to thank Rhonda and Al for putting this together. We did a podcast with you a week ago. Just a couple statements. We know that there's a lot of retribution from the Democrats. We have the opportunity this year, with everybody that's been so negative, okay, to show ourselves as a caring party, as an enthusiastic party about what's going on. So we definitely, folks, have to be out there sharing the issues that are happening, because the people are not educated. You can sit here and say HB 1342 and people are going to go bingo. Okay, I mean, they have no idea. Most of this is enthusiasm. So I know that Al and Ron are putting this together. I would strongly suggest that everybody share these videos and get this stuff out to as many people as you possibly can. Be out there talking. Now is the time. We have 6 months to do it. Okay, we have 6 months to do it. I was talking a lot last night with Ben Klein. The mainstream media is falling apart. The View is almost gone. People are starting to move to this side, and they're starting to get a little bit more common sense on what's going on. So with your enthusiasm, you're the most enthusiastic delegate I have ever seen, Delores. I mean, you and I come from the same cloth. Okay, we could be rah-rah the whole time, but the people aren't educated. We've got to be in front of them. And I know that Pat Harity dropped out. We're doing a podcast tomorrow with John Reed again. And I think we do a lot of these. We do a lot of these and keep sharing them, keep sharing them, keep sharing them. Eventually, somebody's going to pick it up. If you look at Publishers Clearinghouse years ago, they said that the average person, it took them 8 times to finally send the daggone thing back in. So you've got to make sure, or we all have to make sure, that we're out there at the FCRC meetings, that we are talking to people about basic issues that are just common sense. And you do a great job at it. Emily does a great job at it. So if we do that, I am very optimistic about what we can do this year because people are sick of it. Let's get realistic. They're sick of it. Trump's doing a great job with what's going on. The group that we have here in Frederick and Warren and so forth are doing a great job. And I want to thank you very much for all that you're doing. You've done incredible. And I'll share the video with any that we did with you guys last week with anybody that wants to see it as well. Just go to Mountain Patriots on YouTube. You'll see that as well, because we covered some stuff on that one that we didn't cover today, like education. But
And
thank you. And Al and Rhonda, thank you so much for doing this.
thank you, Dana.
Emily,
Thank you,
Dana,
Dana.
you got to kick up your enthusiasm a little bit, Dana. I mean, you're kind
I'm
of
excited. This is
you're
a
a
good
little
year,
you
folks.
feel a little bit too low key in the morning.
Um,
I'm
just
just like Dolores. I went to the school at Dolores.
all right, just so yes,
I-
thank you, Dana. And so for anybody that doesn't
Emily,
know,
Emily's trying to say something.
Yeah, can I just piggyback off of that real quick? Dana said, talk to the FCRC and get out there and share this, but share this with people who don't agree as well. Because when people call our Richmond phone and are angry, Dolores one day she said, go ahead, talk back to them and have a little dialogue. And that has been the best thing that we've done, because when I talk to somebody and I say, what are you really upset about? They can't tell you. And I say, okay, what issues can our office actually help you with? They don't know. They have this faux anger out there, and we need to engage in those conversations as
Great
well.
point.
And last week I went to a federal workers rally that they invited some of the electeds to, and they had no solutions. They had no facts. They had fake anger, and they were impressed to see some of us that did show up and really try and have that hard conversation with them.
thank you.
Yeah, I engage with everybody, whether you like me, you don't like me, you're on my side, you disagree with me. What I believe is the best way for us to win is to have conversations specifically with people who view the world differently and find out how we can, work together. I will tell you, the majority of the people that I know do not want their girls sharing bathrooms with boys. They don't want their young women participating in sports where men can hurt them. And this is something 80% of the population agrees on that topic. And it is too, and that, unfortunately, by the way, I carried that bill this year that would have protected women in high school from this type of thing, and that bill never got heard. So that tells you the Democrats did not want to vote on it, and they don't want to talk about it. So because it's not a winning issue for them.
Thank you. I want to piggyback off Dana, what his comment. On our website, Conservatives of Lake Frederick.com, we have the link to Dana, the Mountain Patriots YouTube site, and with all the podcasts, or it'll go right to there. So if you want to hear more on John Reed, you want to see this video will also be on our website, plus Dana's tomorrow. So once they're posted, go to our website as well, and you can listen to the Mountain Patriots, all their podcasts that they've done, and they've done some good ones, some really good ones as well. From your perspective, what can we in Lake Frederick do to help the county hold our developer responsible for finishing our roads in the county? It's been a battle for years to finish the main thoroughfare Rachel Carson Drive here in our community. The county's been in contact with the developer, and it's just this constant struggle. We keep getting promised the road will get finished, the road will get finished, and it's not. How can the citizens and the residents here in Lake Frederick, how can we get this done? Do you have any helpful hints for us?
So, you have to have your leaders put pressure on the developer to get it done. And that's the number one. That's the number one thing that you can do, is to put pressure. This is not a uncommon scenario. Developers make huge promises about trails, and the people who developed the place where I live, there was going to be a hiking trail or a biking trail. Well, it doesn't exist, right? And they always at the end of the project say that, for whatever reason we can't do this now, and so you need to put pressure on them. And you guys are mighty and very effective in Lake Frederick. I have watched you protest at, Frederick Water. So I know that you have the ability to make a difference. And so that's what you need to do, is just, get, and there's power in numbers, and get in front of the leaders of your community and say, we need help with this.
Okay.
We'll make it happen.
Yeah, we will.
Yeah, you guys will do it. I have no doubt at all.
We have a few minutes left. Does anybody have questions they want to ask Delores?
Hey, I do, real quick, if I can jump in, if you guys don't mind.
Hey, Kent.
Hey, Dolores. Hey, good to see and talk to you again. I can tell you this. I don't have to speak for Dana. He does all the talking, but we had a great time with you on the show the other week. And there was something that I want to point it out. At least I brought up with Dana before. And is there any way that we can get the sheriff of Warren County, Miss Klein, to talk to her? Because Dana and myself, along with the rest of the Patriots, were really concerned with child trafficking that's going on within the area. And since I got a young daughter that's starting school pretty soon, you can imagine I'm a concerned father. And this is something that we really want to bring this issue up and to discuss on how to combat this, what to look for, things to take, and preventative measures, because it's a hot spot. What's your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. And I think you and I talked about the fact that we had a very aggressive group of people within the Warren County Sheriff's Office working on this issue. And we have nailed, I don't know how many, those guys have nailed, I don't know how many predators in the last 9 months. They've arrested significant numbers. And that's what we need is, they hide in the shadows, and we need to figure out who they are and make sure they don't have an opportunity to take advantage of an unsuspecting child. And believe me, Kent, this is an area where you see me, I'm pretty upbeat, but this is an area where I can get really aggressive and angry. Anybody who does this sort of thing to a child needs to be incarcerated for a very long time. And so I'm all for it. I will introduce you to the sheriff, and you can talk to the group that's working on protecting our young people.
That's excellent. I appreciate it. And obviously, I'll just leave with this. It's very concerning. And any type of tip or trick or anything that we need to look out for is appreciative. And I'll let you go.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, this happens in every single county across the country. No matter how safe your community is, child trafficking happens, and people want to put their head in the sand over it. Grandparents need to be concerned, aunts and uncles need to be concerned, parents do. And I worked with Ransom Life in Texas with child trafficking. The number one thing is phones. Make sure that you control what your children, grandchildren, everything are doing on their phones, because that's how these predators are getting to our kids too.
Well, I think we need to ask the phone service companies to provide, a protected phone service for students. That doesn't exist right now. I think that needs to exist, that parents need to buy some sort of way that children do not have access, or people don't have access to them. This thing that we're talking on right now has created so many of these problems, exacerbated so many of these problems.
Well, we're number 4 in the country, folks, when it comes to child trafficking. We're number 4 in the country Virginia is, and we do a lot of training on child trafficking. So I'll be more than happy to share a lot of the stuff that you can teach the parents and signatures with the kids on what they need to sign off on, um, agreements, parental and child agreements. So we have all of that stuff as well. We'll be more than happy to help you. I've been with Saving Lost Kids now for the last 6 years in Tennessee, so we're here to help. Thanks, Dolores. Really appreciate this.
You're welcome.
Well, Dolores, our time's out, but one thing I want you to do is, how can we help you?
All right. I'm glad you asked that question because this is, I mean, we need to, and I know you all hate hearing this, but we need to raise money because unfortunately we have to provide money to these people in these districts who are in competitive areas. And one of the biggest issues is that we're getting money from other states. I mean, if you look at Spamberger and some of the stuff that some of the donations that they're getting, they're coming from out of state because the very active far left wants to make sure that she wins the executive mansion, and they know that she'll be a reliable left vote. She is not a moderate. She pretends to be, but she's not. And there are no moderates in Richmond. Just letting you know, they'll say they are, but when the chips are down, they all vote for the most extreme policies. So we need to raise money, knock doors. But one thing I do want to say to you is I want to thank you, Rhonda, and the Conservatives of Lake Frederick for helping get signatures for me and ensuring that I am on the ballot and the Republican nominee in this November. So I am very grateful for the work that all of you did to help get the signatures that were necessary. So thank you very much.
So we would raise money. Where do we give our donations?
So you can send them to my campaign and I will make sure. I'm going to tell you, I am acting as a fundraiser to help some of these other very purple districts. You know, we want to maximize our coverage. And so if I don't use it, we need to, we will make sure that people like Ian Lovejoy in Prince William County and Gary Higgins in Loudoun County and other there's Chad Green and so many other, we know, like-minded Republicans will keep their seats in the House of Delegates. And then we want to make sure Tim Anderson wins in Virginia Beach. And some of those folks that have aggressively gone out there and said, we can flip the seat and make sure that House of Delegates represents the true values of Virginians and not those just expressed by the far left. And that is, I mean, they're just too extreme for Virginia, and Virginia will become a very extreme state if they win. I can't emphasize it enough. It keeps me awake at night.
So, even $10.
Yeah, $5. There is no minimum.
Right. Any month. Yeah, Emily just shared Spamberger's raised 16 million, Sears 5 million. We all know money doesn't necessarily win. Trump was outspent however it costs money to win. So, and we do know that. And I have your site, the secure. I've sent money. We're going to keep sending money.
Thank you so much. We are just so grateful for the trust and the support. And I promise you, I'm not buying signs this year. I'm not, because I make sure that I save all these things so we don't have to repeat spending on things we don't need. And we will use this money to help our other delegates that are running in these districts hold on to their seats, or in the case of Tim Anderson and several others, flip the seats.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Emily. Thank you. And I can't tell everybody here enough how much we need to support and thank you, Dolores, for what you do for our state and our district.
We're going to keep doing these. We're going to keep doing this so that we can maximize the outreach, so that folks who can't be with you personally, or when you don't have the time to be with us, we're going to make sure that we reach out and use every tool available to us to put people in front of their representative.
Well, and I'm honored to represent this community. I love this place and I love the values and the natural beauty that we have here. And I don't want it ruined by overdevelopment. And so I'm going to do everything I can to represent the community and, talk to anybody willing to listen.
Thank you very much. You guys have a great day, and I'll let you get to your business.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Great day.